one key thing that is really affecting our laws in Sierra Leone is the enforcement, the implementation. I have been with community people for over 11 years, but if you can ask any one of the community people how many of them are really aware of the mining laws, none of them can tell you.
They say Sierra Leone is rich in diamonds, gold, and fertile forest. But what good is wealth if it leaves the people poor, the rivers poisoned, and the forests empty? This is On Rights, Crime and Justice, coming to you from Gringo TV. Today we pull back on the curtain on certain crisis in Sierra Leone that goes far beyond pollution or policy failure, but it's a system that's cracked at the core, where it's not just an environmental issue, but a human rights emergency, from foreign exploitation to government complicity, and a mining sector tied to corruption and modern slavery, as we may call it. The question is, can Sierra Leone protect its environment and its people without first confronting the deep-rooted corruption at the heart of the system? I have with me to unpack this discussion Losi Kone, Executive Director and founder of the Young Africans Community Empowerment Initiative in Sierra Leone. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Losi. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing fine. And
all right,
you?
so I'm very well, thank you. It's good to have you joining us in this very important discussion. And we'll start with the big one, which is mining. The category of mining that has proven to be very problematic in Sierra Leone, and it largely contributes to massive environmental degradation, is the unregulated and uncontrolled artisanal mining in Sierra Leone, which, although it was meant for locals, it is supposedly now dominated by foreigners. So first of all, I want to understand, what's the situation with this in Sierra Leone, and what are some of the risks that the people are having to face because of this artisanal mining issue? Just bring us up to speed on what's happening there with this particular situation.
Yeah, thank you so much. In Sierra Leone, as we started, we are actually rich in minerals. These are really natural gifts from God. And it has been a very long time where Sierra Leoneans are not really just benefiting from these minerals. One of the major issues around this is that the artisanal mining has actually been taken over by investors, foreign investors, who normally comes into the country and then try to lease amount of lands that they mine for a very long period of time, of which it has really try to limit the opportunity from the community people to actually benefit as required. So this has actually been a problem, especially relating to environmental degradation. Because considering the artisanal mining, of which it was just like using some amount of small tools by the community people in terms of earning their living. But now this has been a very big transition from that of artisanal mining to commercial mining, of which it has to deal with large scale of land that have been degraded by the investors. And these lands are not restored as required, even though we have so many laws, mining laws in Sierra Leone, but these laws are not just forthcoming, you see. So it also tries to interrupt the social relationship between people, especially the rural communities, because once these companies are mining from one communities, mostly they are being relocated to other communities. This increases the population in one community and limiting the livelihood of people.
All right, thank you so much. And now, still on this mining case, some people are of the opinion that there is an interplay between the natural resource exploitation that's going on in Sierra Leone and organized crime, insinuating that there is an active participation of government officials in it. Do you agree with that? And if that's the case, how deep actually is the link between this exploitation and corruption in Sierra Leone, especially on the part of the government having a role to play in all of this?
So yeah, thank you so much. I can really agree with that. Yes, because looking at the situation currently, Sierra Leone has beautiful laws, but one key thing that is really affecting our laws in Sierra Leone is the enforcement, the implementation. One, I have been with community people for over 11 years, but if you can ask any one of the community people how many of them are really aware of the mining laws, none of them can tell you, because the awareness, the level of awareness of community people to be able to use the law is very much slim, let alone for them to have the resources that are required for them to reinforce the laws. So this has actually become a problem in Sierra Leone, especially when most of our leaders, either directly or indirectly, are being involved in some of these activities. Because from our mining laws, no company is allowed to actually mine in any of the communities without a legal document. Now, these legal documents are provided by the environmental protection agencies, or sometimes the mining ministry, the mining agency. So these documents are provided. Mostly the community people are not really au fait with the environmental impacts that might be caused by these mining companies. So as a result, the community people might be thinking this is going to be like an opportunity for them to gain access to job, especially for young people like youths. But again, it turns something different from just getting the job, but also destroying the environment, of which these mining companies are not complying with the environmental policies related to recovering the land before even moving to another location. So these are really affecting not only the environment, but even the health of the community people.
All right, and you know, I'm glad that you're already getting to the part of what the people in the communities are facing, because Sierra Leone is now said to be a hotspot for human trafficking, where we have victims that are predominantly recruited from these rural areas, and then they are transported to the urban centers and the mining hubs, you know, and they are subjected to forced labors, especially at this mining hub. So I want to know how rampant is that? How rampant is this situation of modern day slavery in the mining industry in Sierra Leone that we're seeing today? How much of this have you seen in these communities?
Yeah, I want to actually agree with you. This is really something that is really affecting Sierra Leone, because young people in Sierra Leone made up of our majority of population. But to be honest with you, there are limited job opportunities in Sierra Leone. It's an opportunity for them to acquire. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to even get a domestic job. So what they do normally is for them to find somewhere they can attach themselves. So most of them are not really like people taking them there, but they move there willingly because they think they are going there for them to get a job. So when they are there, they are really going to face so many challenges. And as a result, they fix themselves into one or two of these mining companies so that they can be able to earn their living. As a result, they might be assigned to certain roles and responsibilities that may really not match with their age requirements. So these are some of the modern slavery indirectly that are affecting young people in Sierra Leone because of the limited job opportunities, especially in the rural communities.
Okay. So now let's go to, because you spoke a bit earlier about the EPA and looking at all of this that's happening. I know Sierra Leone does have some legislative framework for all of this. For instance, the Mine and the Minerals Act of 2009, and this actually requires the mineral right holders to conduct mining in a way that, you know, reasonably minimizes and mitigates the environmental impact. But with all of this going on, would you say that the EPA and the mining agencies have failed to supervise and enforce these policies in Sierra Leone, or do they just not have the political will to hold the mining companies accountable because, you know, like we said a bit earlier, the government might be involved in this? So could this be why there doesn't seem to be much enforcement in these policies that are already on ground?
So yeah, so thank you so much. Like I stated initially, this is really one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in Sierra Leone, because the policies we have, they are really on papers. But most of these policies are less enforced as compared to what we have on the ground. I'm telling you this from practical point of view. I have been with rural communities for over 11 years in different capacities. I can tell you that the laws are there, but the implementation is really very slow and not that much in the favor of the community people. Reason is that I can say that the EPA, they are not really working. They are working, but the effectiveness of these laws, for them to really reinforce the law, to see that the community people really are safe and then protected from any environmental impact, is the problem. One could be like the limited resources they are also getting because of what? The funding in terms of paying their staff. Assuming if we have each and every corner of Sierra Leone, if we have like the representative of the environmental protection agencies monitoring the mining activities of these companies, I want to tell you that we have a very good control over the policies. But this is less effective because we have less environmental protection agencies at rural communities. The offices are more located in the regional centers or cities, but to have the grassroots involvement of how the community people can even hold the mining companies to account based on what they have agreed to from the mining agency is the problem, because the community cannot really interpret what is on the paper. But the mining companies have all of these documents. The environmental protection agencies, they have the technical know-how, the technical experts for them to interpret these policies to the companies. But that particular reinforcement is really, really a problem. We have the laws, but the reinforcement of the laws to be more effective is the problem.
All right, we'll take a short break now, just take a pause on the conversation. And when we come back, we'll go into the issue of wildlife trafficking, which is another growing concern in Sierra Leone. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. You're still watching on Rights, Crime and Justice, coming to you from Gringo TV, and we've been looking at some of the issues, environmental crimes and even human rights violations that have been going on in Sierra Leone, and we're having that discussion with Lossie Kone. And I want to come back to you now, Lossie. Let's look at another aspect. You spoke a bit on the mining aspect. Let's go to the issue of wildlife trafficking, which is another growing concern in Sierra Leone. We have various endangered species that are being smuggled out of the country, primarily to East Asia. And the question now is, why is this so rampant in Sierra Leone? Is it lack of awareness or ignorance on the part of the people in the community? And so far, what has the government done about it? Because it doesn't seem like much is being done about it by the government to implement, conservation measures to be able to mitigate this. So just give us a bit on the situation of this in Sierra Leone currently.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sierra Leone is really rich in natural resources, including wildlife. But over the years, this has really been a problem where the community people are not getting the required education or knowledge that they really need for them to see how they can protect the environment and its natural resources. This is evidence where the government himself has also identified that as a huge problem in the medium-term development plan. Community people, they need to have that knowledge that is required for them to know that ruling the wildlife. But I can tell you, like in the east where I'm currently located, we only have one known government required agency that is really trying to see how we can protect the wildlife within the eastern region, especially in Kenema, where we call the Gola Rainforest. This is where we have the national park, where we have tourist opportunities, where people come to see some of these wildlife. But I can tell you, in many parts of the country, we have these opportunities, but there are less support for us to see that these areas are being protected. Unless, like from the 2022, where the government has passed another act that we call the Customary Land Rights Act, that is really trying to see how this can be reinforced by protecting wetland and also all the virgin forests to be protected from deforestation, wildfire, and the likes. But again, like I said initially, this law has been passed for over 3 to 4 years now. There has been less awareness about this law. But however, some of us as community development agents, we are trying to see how we can raise more awareness about this law so that community members can adequately make use of the law, because it involves the techniques and the ideas that the community people can use to really see how they can better manage their land in terms of conservation, better planning for farming activities, and other economic related activities like investment, like we are saying, the mining. It has been a long while where community people just offer their land to investors without even knowing the required amount of land that they have in their possession. And at the end, because they will be evacuated from their communities to relocate to a new community. When they go there, they will be like strangers. So the wildlife conservation has really become something that has been less important to community members, because people do not see this as something that's really relevant to them. So as a result, they care less. So these are some of the reasons why we are really experiencing the trafficking of wildlife from Sierra Leone to other countries, as you said.
All right, and so what would you advise needs to be done to be able to mitigate this particular crisis of wildlife trafficking? You know, what if you were speaking to your fellow Sierra Leoneans, what would you say to allow them to understand how much of an issue this activity or this act of theirs is?
So one key thing I believe, starting from our government here in Sierra Leone, is that we should not just be like having so many laws, but we should have mechanisms of how these laws can really be propagated from the national level to that of the grassroots level. Doing this can help the communities to be more knowledgeable of the different instruments that we are using as a nation, but how these instruments are really essential for the well-being and the livelihood of community people. Because just maybe try to say we have laws is not really sufficient, but how these laws are being implemented, how the community people can really interpret these laws, what is the benefit of the law to the community people is really key. Because when someone knows the importance of a particular instrument to him or her, I believe strongly that they can make use of those instruments to see that they really see the benefits from it. So one key thing the government can do is to really let the community people know the importance, the essence of these, like you are saying, the wildlife to the nation and even to the community, and why this does need to be protected. why the wildlife need to be protected, they should know the benefits, right? Then also, doing this, if we are trying to say we have to protect our environment, we want to protect a particular land for the wildlife to be safe, then there also be an alternative livelihood activities for the community people, because this can also help them to protect and prevent the wildlife from damage and also from being destroyed. For example, some of the lands have been destroyed by the community people either for timber logging or for farming activities, because they think they only depend on that for their living. But if we have so many livelihood opportunities where we community people can have a means of getting their livelihood, I think they will be able to protect the environment. They will be able to see how the wildlife can also be protected, so that they can be able to really serve the nation for the purpose they are being reserved. So I think those are some of the procedures that need to be put in place so that the community people can really see the essence of why they should do that.
All right. So now let's go to some of the other things we need to look at, because one of the factors that is fueling some of these environmental crime is crimes in Sierra Leone, or these environmental issues in Sierra Leone, is the rapid urbanization, which is somehow leading to an increase in all these illegal activities. So how do you think Sierra Leone can balance urban expansion that's happening now with the urgent need for conservation and environmental protection? Because, you know, by the time we have more people in a community, there's less resources, there's scarce resource available, and then, of course, the people become desperate to do things that they're not supposed to be doing. And this is one of the factors leading to these illegal activities and all these environmental issues happening. So how do you think Sierra Leone can balance this out to be able to meet the need to expand, rather, and to ensure that the environment doesn't get hurt while the people are expanding?
Yeah, thank you so much for that particular wonderful question. Like from our previous discussion, one of the motive of migration leading to urbanization is the limited job opportunities within the regions, within the rural communities. And as a result, young people are frequently migrating from rural communities, from the regions to the cities to find their living. So as a result, we have a lot of young people packed in the capital cities, especially like Freetown, to be specific. Now, this is how really becoming a very big challenge in Freetown. Like over the years, we have been seeing where we faced a mudslide. This was as a result of people mining stones from the peninsula, and also people also forcefully building houses in the peninsula and cutting down trees. Of course, before now in the 90s, we have not been actually hearing such stories. But if you can go to Freetown now, you have very limited forest in Freetown, of which it is really being protected forcefully also by law. Otherwise, that should have also been destroyed. So like you said, for us to really see that we try to minimize some of these things, for example, if we want to expand, if the government want to expand like Freetown, we have to look out for a different location. For example, we have a very good land in Lunge, where we have our international airport. That particular place is more fit for expansion of Freetown than just within the Freetown Peninsula. We continue to force, like some people are really trying to like cut from the steep slope, where it's resulting to more slides. And at the end of the day, what I can say here is that now if people are still like constructing houses in the peninsula, when they are being stopped, they are not stopping. So the government needs to use some amount of the policies that we have to remove them from that particular location. The reason is that when once incident happened, like in the past years, when the mudslide happened, over thousands of lives were destroyed as a result of the mudslide. And the first point of contact was the government. What can the government do? What is the government doing? But we have these laws. So if the government is not really reinforcing these laws to stop people from building from those dangerous places, at the end of the day, the government is going to be questioned. What is the government doing? Or what are the government agencies doing to protect the people, the lives of Sierra Leoneans? So as a result, we should be strategic in our thinking, in our planning, to see where we can really expand our cities, where we can really expand our towns, so that it cannot really become a dangerous relocation for our people. Because young people today are the leaders of today, not even tomorrow, I can say. Because we are being built today to lead for tomorrow. So if we are being built today to lead for tomorrow, then we are the leaders of today and not tomorrow. We are not going to wait for tomorrow. So they should be thinking strategically to see that we have a very good location for expansion of towns or cities that cannot really lead to destruction of lives and properties. Like we are not seeing, there have been a lot of fire outbreaks in Sierra Leone inside this year compared to any of the year. Some of these things are more like as a result of congestion of either a population, or either the consumption of electrical appliances, or too much of heat as a result of climate change. All of these things are also responsible for these things. So it's to hard time for our government agencies or our government to see how they can strategically plan to see that our expansion cannot really affect our lives and properties.
All right, thank you so much, Lucy. We're wrapping up the program now, but before we close, I want to get your final thoughts. I'm considering, because we've spoken a lot about what the government needs to do, and considering that some of these environmental crimes, like we've said, they are organized, and some of them even have government participation in it. Do you think that it's possible to clean up the sector without political reforms, or are there political reforms needed? So far, looking at all these issues that we've highlighted, how would you assess the government's response? Do you think that they are truly committed to ensuring sustainable development? And do you think political reforms are needed before we can achieve this desired goal that we have for a more sustainable development?
Thank you so much for that wonderful question. Though this is really a bit difficult question to answer, because you cannot be the player and also become the referee. This is the problem. Now, those are really the policy makers. Some of them are involved in these activities. How is the policy going to be reinforced? That is the biggest question. Yes. So in Sierra Leone, if we really want to see that these laws become very much reinforceable and in the interest of our community people, then we should not be the referee and we should not be the player at the same time. We should take one side. Our development agencies, our government agencies need to stand with one foot to say we are just the policy makers, and then let them allow the policy to be effective by really trying to see that what they have put into the documents have been reinforced and it's been impactful to the people. But it's very difficult to say that those who are like policymakers also involved in this activity to tell me that they will be able to reinforce the policies. For example, there are so many our government agencies who are involved in timber logging as a business, and as a result, community members are also being taking this one to be a very good business. This has resulted in the massive deforestation. So how can you become the business, I can say the investor, and also become the lawmaker? It's really very much impossible to be able to control that system. You know, if you control them, affected. So as a result, people start looking at you as a leader. You should lead by example. If you are stopping people from deforestation, you should be the first people to be to really stop that from doing. But if you are doing it in different forms, sometimes they lace with people. They are not really directly doing it. Sometimes because we cannot really see them coming, but they lace with people to do for them. As a result, some other people are also doing it because they know they are doing it for these people, and they are not. So as a result, they are not being held accountable for their actions. So people see it as an opportunity also. So you see, so that makes our law very weak and not being effective in implementation. So to really see, we want to have a very good and effective policies in our country, then the government officials need to stand firm to say we are not part of it and we should not really support it. And as a result, it will be a very good instrument for us to use in our country.
All right, thank you so much, Leslie, for Lossie rather, sorry, I beg your pardon, for joining on the conversation. It's been a very insightful one. A lot of things going on in Sierra Leone that we need to really pay much more attention to. So yeah, it's a very timely discussion. So it's been a pleasure to have you on the program. As we've seen today, Sierra Leone's environmental crisis isn't just a matter of pollution or policy gaps, but it's a story of deep-rooted injustice and the silence that are suffering in these communities and whose voices have been ignored. This system actually shows that corruption is thriving, and where nature and the people depend on it, they are the ones that pay the ultimate price. But at the heart of this is a simple truth, and that says when we destroy the environment, we actually destroy ourselves as well. So we hope that this conversation has helped shed some light on the problems and the possible solutions. And also remember, you can be a part of the solution by reporting environmental crimes you see in your community on the Green Growth Watch app, and we'll be sure to share your story to the world. Till next time, I'm Tonio Gubanjo. Bye for now.